Now, last weekend's Sinn Féin Ardèche voted to support the agreement, let the party take seats in the Assembly and sign up for the first time to the notion of consent. Was this an historic, if not earth-shattering, shift in Republican thought or merely a clever tactical decision? With me to discuss that are the nationalist commentator Brian Feeney and Sinn Féin's former publicity director Danny Morrison, who of course coined the legendary phrase that Republicans would take power with the Armalite in one hand and the ballot box in the other. Gentlemen, welcome to Hearts and Minds. Danny Morrison, an earth-shattering shift or simply tactics?
No, I think it was a fundamental shift in the Republican position. If you consider how much traditional baggage has been shed by that decision, and I think that in reciprocation of it, what would be expected is that the Unionists now realise how serious Sinn Féin is about building on this advance.
But how seriously should the Unionists take it? I mean, no one has said on the Republican side the war is over. There's no decommissioning. So what really has changed?
Well, there has been a major sea change in the Republican position. It'll take Unionists quite a long time to accept that. The analogy very much is with the official IRA in 1972. And it took the Unionists 5 years before they accepted that the official IRA, Sinn Féin, the Workers' Party as it was then, had actually given up the armed struggle and had come into democratic politics. It took them really until 1977 before they were prepared to accept them on councils and vote them in as chairman and so on. It is asking a lot of Unionists to simply flip over and say, okay, we accept Sinn Féin is now adopting this position, when they haven't handed over anything and when they haven't said the war's over. And if they haven't said it's over, why should Unionists believe that?
Well, I don't think that the Republicans have actually changed any of their fundamental aspirations. They still don't believe the British government has the right to be here, and they consider Britain to be the major power, which was initially the cause of the trouble. Contrary to your introduction, I don't believe that Republicans have signed up to the principle of unionist consent, even though they generally endorse the agreement.
But they have, because you can't cherry pick this agreement. You accept all of it or none of it.
Well, I don't think that's the way the Republicans view it.
I think there has been a major change in Republican thinking. Not all Republicans have come the whole way. The leadership has, and they've managed to persuade people. My only regret is that they have taken so long, because it really is back to the future. I mean, Republicans in this agreement have signed up to less than the Sunningdale Agreement in 1973, which they repudiated completely and spent most of 1974 trying to bomb into oblivion. They've agreed now to less. So really, you know, what was the last 15, 20 years about? All those people being killed, particularly since 1988, 89, when the leadership was already taking decision to move towards some kind of political development rather than the armed struggle. It's the end of the dream. They have accepted there will not be a united Ireland achieved by violence.
Well, I don't agree that you can actually use that analogy with Sunningdale, because back in 1973, when Sunningdale was proposed, you still had conflict being waged. You still had the British Army believing they could beat the IRA. You still had the IRA waging war. You still had the Loyalist assassination campaign. And you had the bulk of the Ulster Unionist Party elected in February 1974, who opposed the Sunningdale Agreement and brought it down. So I think what you have to do, if you're going to look at it like that, you have to look at it in parallel. You have to say to yourself, so now has the Ulster Unionist Party signed up to everything that's in the agreement?
Yes,
but I don't believe they have.
Well, the Ulster Unionist Party, the leader of the Ulster Unionist Party was out on the streets objecting to Sunningdale and joined the Vanguard Party and was involved in Vanguard trying to do the opposite of what he's now proposing that Unionists should do. So there have been major changes on both sides, and I think it's foolish to pretend that there hasn't. My regret is that the violence went on for so long when clearly the leadership on the Republican side knew it wasn't going to achieve its goals.
Is that one reason why the IRA can't say that the war is over, because they cannot face publicly that recognition of the futility of the campaign?
No, I don't think that. I think that the position is that the IRA fought a war, a very long war. There was a lot of conflict, a lot of suffering during that, a lot of endurance. And you came to a position back in 1990, not 1988, back in 1990, whenever you had a situation with former commanders in the British Army and then the Secretary of State at the time, Peter Brooke, admitting that there was a military stalemate. And I think that that is the moment when things started to change. When the British agreed that they couldn't beat the IRA, then it allowed the IRA to come around to publicly moving towards a public position of accepting that as well.
The reason I say 1988 is because that's when
Because that's
first meetings.
and the SDLP started.
The first meetings took place.
But there has been change, and I mean, it will take a long time, and I would certainly suggest 4 to 5 years before unionists accept that there has been genuine change on the part of Republicans. They'll be watching to see what Republicans do.
Yeah,
I mean, that's understandable.
Republicans also, I mean, it isn't just that the unionists are the offended party here. I mean, you have last week this brouhaha over prisoners appearing at the Ardèche, and people saying, "Oh, this is terrible, prisoners getting out." But the nationalist community doesn't even have the privilege of experiencing that position, because the people who killed their loved ones in the British Army and the RUC were never in prison for the nationalists to say, "Oh, I object to those people getting out."
Yes, but people see Sinn Féin saying, we have nothing to do with the IRA, we're not responsible for them, we don't carry their guns, we're a completely separate organisation. And then IRA prisoners appear to Sinn Féin Ardèche and are fated to the heavens. What do you expect people to think?
Well, I was there writing on that Ardèche, and there was a massive emotional reaction to people who had been in jail for 23 years. It was their first time out of jail. What do people expect? What do people expect?
Well, I think what Bertie Ahern expected was that they wouldn't appear on the platform, therefore triggering that emotional response.
Well, then Bertie Ahern is very naive, and I don't think it was stage managed. I think it was spontaneous, and I think it's understandable.
I think that, I mean, these kind of things about, you know, recriminations and prisoners and the past and so on, I think we should try to look and see where nationalism is going to go now that I believe the Republican movement has come into politics, has taken the historic step. It will take a long time for unionists to accept that. It's a bigger change on Republicans' part than it is on the unionists' part. And I accept Danny's point that, I mean, it's not as if the unionists are the offended people. But what we can now get on with is moving towards equality. And the sort of thing, believe it or not, which were being suggested 30 years ago by the civil rights movement. Now we're talking in 1998 terms about equality in matters of justice and policing and all the rest of it. And as I say, I just wish that the Republican movement hadn't been such slow learners.
But that is not, you're missing the fundamental lesson. And that is that it is the Unionist Party, which has traditionally and to this day still resists that equality agenda. That's why there's so much fundamental split in the Ulster Unionist Party over this.
What I'm saying is that now that the violence is over, nationalists can legitimately sit down and start talking about equality and policing and justice and social and economic matters, because that's what's important and that's what politics is about.
And how long will it be before the IRA is able to say, okay, we don't need these weapons? In other words, is the moral justification for violence still there in the IRA's terms?
Well, I don't believe that there's anything to be achieved by further armed struggle.
You don't think, but what does the IRA think?
Well, I don't know what the IRA thinks. I'm giving my opinion as a person who was formerly a director of publicity for Sinn Féin and still lives in West Belfast. I think that many IRA volunteers believe that the war is over. I don't think that you're ever going to get the IRA to say that because no one knows what's around the corner. But having said that, I think there's a desire there to allow politics to take over. And that is a fundamental shift.
I mean, we agree on that.
Will there ever be a day when the IRA says, okay, have some weapons?
I can't see the IRA giving the rust of one rifle over to the British because it is symbolic of surrender. And let's remember, when the IRA ceasefire in 1962, even the Unionist government at Stormont did not make that demand of the IRA.
Okay, but one Republican demand is for demilitarization, taking all the guns out of politics. If troops disappear, if the numbers of police officers are reduced, that is effectively decommissioning those weapons, isn't it?
No, not until the police issue is sorted out. Not until, because that you must understand that the formation of the IRA, the reformation of the IRA in 1969 and 1970 had got to do with attacks on nationalist areas. And nationalists still do not feel secure. They cannot pledge themselves towards any police force. Until that is resolved, then you will not get the complete demilitarization.
Gentlemen, there we must leave it. Brian Finney and Danny Morrison, thank you very much indeed.